good to be back. I appreciate everybody for sticking around. It's been like a month since I've done one of these. Things happen. You get a little bit busy, but also things kind of kicked back into gear recently. So there's a whole lot more to get into, a lot more to talk about. I would be remiss though if we didn't talk about some other things to start this thing off. I'm a huge Panthers fan, and this is a Central Panthers podcast essentially. But I also want to touch on some of the other things that come up and that happen. So with that, I want to bring my buddy, this guy, Alex Bryant, back in the house. What's up, man? How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. I'm so glad to be doing this because I am just exhausted doing everything else. So it's like a little brain break.
Look at me. I thought you were actually just being nice and be like, man, I'm so glad to be doing this. Happy to see you, man.
Oh, dude, I'm happy to.
And look at us. We're both wearing the shirt of the band that we went to go see. That's like the number one no-no. You're not supposed to do it. But you know what I say? Fuck a no-no. You can do whatever you want to, man.
So the reason I say all of that, I'm happy to be talking to a friend about things that I like instead of talking to like brokers and landlords and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to very much enjoy this.
Yeah, me too, man. Well, you said you like talking about things that you like, but the problem is we're actually going to start out talking about a couple of things that are just annoying as shit. But they have kind of taken over just about every space that you can be in. And part of it is kind of like understandable, right? It's polarizing stuff and like it's interesting and it's a new thing that for a lot of people. But let's get into some of the things that are kind of crazy, okay? We'll call them drink-worthy bits.
Hey, I like drinking.
Because I like to think of it, yeah, man, like what throughout the week have you been sitting there dealing with? And now I know you have been dealing with a plethora of real-life things.
Oh, yeah.
But just from a sports world, right, and a media world, first of all, I think that there's an easy gripe with a lot of these things. And it's the way that media and fans portray all these things, right? You can tumbleweed these regular issues. Right? Like I'm talking about just basic shit, man, regular things. And you can portray them in a way that is so frustrating and maddening and skewed. And I think that's what's happening with this first issue. That picture right there that you're seeing on your screen is Caitlin Clark and Kennedy Carter. Now, this particular play, give a little bit of context here. Caitlin Clark, if you don't know who she is the fantastic rookie in the WNBA. She played at Iowa. She broke all kinds of collegiate records, pretty much every record that means anything, right? She's a smaller in stature as far as like physical build. She's tall for a point guard, but she can shoot like Steph Curry, essentially, right? That's her game. She's unlimited range, super creative. She's a pest to defenses. Well, she comes to the WNBA and they've picked up like the chartered flights. They've got more attendance for her games than any of the other games. And there is all this like animosity and hatred and confusion about why she's getting credit. Should she get credit? So in this game, it's Chicago and Indiana. Now, Angel Reese, who also played for LSU, was drafted by Chicago. So this was Angel Reese against Caitlin Clark in this game. But Kennedy Carter, first of all, man, I watched this game. Kennedy Carter was giving Caitlin Clark fits all game. Caitlin is just not strong enough for the WNBA right now, right? But when this play happened, it was an inbounds play, and before the ball was even passed inbounds, Kennedy Carter came over and essentially hip checked her, just bumped her and threw her to the ground. I mean, it was a dirty play, man. It was a flagrant foul. It's not the way that you should do it. If you want to make a statement, hey, man, I got no problem with physical play, right? Like, dude, you remember growing up watching the NBA? You'd set hard screens. You put people on their ass. You throw elbows. So we'd talk about Charles Oakley, Dennis Rodman.
We got Draymond Green in the league. Like, we see it all the time.
Correct. Now, normally with Draymond, well, I can't even say that for Draymond. I was going to say normally for Draymond's sake, it's in the flow of the game where he's just a little bit crazy and does some shit. But he also does some crazy things where he just kick dudes in the nuts for no reason away from, 60 feet away from the game. But in this one, where this thing happened, but it started this crazy dialogue, dude, where it is everywhere. And people are writing editorials. I think it's like the Chicago Tribune. They wrote an editorial about how this is assault if it's not on the basketball court. I got to give credit first before we do this to Michael Wilbon and Tony Kornheiser. they're the best in the biz in my book, right? Like they've been people that I've idolized for a long time when it comes to sports media and journalism. But they talked about the thing that no one else is comfortable just bringing up loudly. And that's the racial part of all this, right? But it's not the way that you would think. It's not that like, oh, it's white versus black. No. It's because of the fact that Caitlin Clark is a white woman and she's playing and she's getting a lot of notoriety when the league is predominantly comprised of black women, right? Or women of color. And the white fans have like gotten rabid about this thing, dude. It's almost like they're like, you can't touch a white person that way. You can't do that to a white lady. But it shouldn't be that big of a thing, dude. This is a basketball thing, and it should just be about basketball. We spend so much time, and I watched first take. Stephen A. Smith was getting all over McNutt about this shit, dude. And it's like, it's crazy. Why was he was screaming at Monica McNutt, who played in the WNBA, who has experience playing women's professional basketball, and he's trying to explain to her how this situation is, right? I wanted to hear first your opinion, because you and I talked about this a little bit off camera too. And you had a pretty interesting view of how it's kind of infiltrated your social media as well, even when you haven't even been.
Jesus Christ, yeah. What? So I'm trying to be as like concise about a take as possible, because I can just rant.
Yeah.
First of all, yeah, I got a lot of stuff going on, but it's not bad stuff. I don't want anybody to think that I like my wife's in the hospital or anything, and my baby's amazing. She's really great. So I know you talked about that first. I want to be just make sure. Two, man, in NBA, which is much more watched, something very similar happened with Nikola Jokic and the other Morris brother. They did go to the hospital and didn't play for half the season with a neck injury afterwards.
When he hit him blindside. Yeah.
And no one said anything about that. This is a love tap in basketball. I really try to be concise because there's so many different ways I can go. But you ended it with the Stephen A. And I think we just got to start thinking about when we say things and when we do things. Because I don't know anything about women's basketball. I watched Caitlin Clark the last two games in the WNBA tournament because it was fun. She was fun. But this is like two of the worst teams in WNBA and all like women's basketball. It sucks that this is women's basketball because the best teams that have like great players that are the best in the league are getting talked about at all because we're only talking about this.
Right.
Every time you look at anything, ask the why. Why am I talking about this? Why am I talking about this girl on the worst team in basketball and then this girl on the second worst team in basketball when I don't have I am immediately making a conclusion. I have not watched any other women's basketball. I have no idea how the rest of the league plays against each other. Also, why is it being pushed? Like, why is any narrative ever pushed? Think of politics. Every narrative is always pushed for money, right? You just said the name. Who has the biggest rights to WNBA? ESPN.
ESPN, yep.
And they have the most female columnists that played WNBA basketball. So maybe if that is the only place I'm getting information, that maybe there's a reason why. So I'm opening a bar, right? So and I'm very much about specificity and data and everything. So everything has a reason why. Why are we putting this picture up? What does that do to help us make money? Why am I carrying this beer? So when you say, why am I making this narrative? All right, where did this come from? Did somebody ask a leading question? And I make a response based on all the data that I have. If you haven't watched another WNBA game, if you haven't watched a WNBA game, then you probably don't need to say anything about it. But we do because we are innately have a opinion about. Oh God, I don't even go there. I'm not going there. What we just do about everything. Like you want to be right, and you want to be right, and your expertise is what you listen to. So you're just going to quote that without even actually doing the research, the background work on that. Right. My problem is more people are doing this about this situation than I've ever seen in my entire life. I've been super, super busy, so I haven't been on Twitter as much. I haven't been watching any sports at all. But I got on last night and I was excited because I was like, let me get updates about what's going on in Panthers world, which is 95% of what I follow on Twitter. Right. It literally took me an hour to find anything about the Panthers. Mm-hmm. I saw only Dr. Fauci and Caitlin Clark. And if I asked the why, because I didn't see any stat line, I didn't see any win-loss record, I didn't see anything. I didn't see anything except one side being like on both sides against each other that had no actual. That isn't going to lead me anyway. So almost like people are just ranting, basically saying that I'm on her side, but I'm not going to give you a reason why because blah blah blah.
Because it's not, yeah.
And so that's not entertaining for me as the consumer of what you're saying. It's almost like I'm just getting word vomit out, but it's the same. It's like literally I'm seeing two tweets. It's one for Caitlin Clark and one for because it's always Reese because she's saying something too. And I don't even know I don't even know who the other girl is.
Well, and see with Angel, dude, the interesting thing is though, like they've had their battle in college, right? Like Iowa and LSU played in the national championship game, and LSU won that game. And Caitlin had been doing the face guarding thing, right? That's what she had been known for, and people thought it was cool. It was trash talk, and it was cool. But then Angel Reese did it to her in the game when they beat her, and all of a sudden these think pieces came out about how trashy and classless Angel Reese is for doing that, right? Because she beat her, and it's like, dude, it's sports, first of all. So in sports, not everybody has to love each other and be friends when they're playing against each other. Like that's just not the nature of the games, of any games, dude. It's not just WNBA, it's not NBA, it's not NFL, it's not baseball. Sports brings out a level of almost animosity, right? But the level of animosity that Caitlin Clark has been getting has been this like weird extended level where it's like, well, we've all been doing this for a long time. And yeah, dude, she is new and she hasn't earned anything in the WNBA. But there's also a point of it that if you check her viewership numbers and all that stuff for her game, she has a lot of fans, dude. She's brought a lot of added attention.
Yeah, she's polarizing.
And that's great, man. Like there's nothing wrong with that, right? Like that's all part of it. But you can't walk away from like the racial undertones of the discussion. Like Pat McAfee.
Yeah, that's what I did. I didn't want to get into that.
And that's fine, dude. Like, and I don't want to get like deep into it, but you also like by disregarding it, I think that we're missing the point of why all of this is being so overly dramatized and overly publicized without ever getting to the root of the problem and addressing it. Right. It's like if you have it's like if you have some invasive weeds growing in your yard, in your garden, and all you do is you pick the leaves off, but you leave the stems and the roots. It's going to keep on coming back, dude. So like, you got to address what's happening. Like Pat McAfee caught hell because he called her one white bitch on his show the other day. Dude, you're losing your mind. First of all, no man has to describe a woman as a bitch, right? Like there's no way. And he was like, complimentary. There's a complimentary way of me.
Vocabulary, like
correct, man. Like the thing is, and here was my read on it, is that he was mocking the way he thinks that a certain demographic of people refer to Caitlin Clark, right? Oh, there's this one white bitch in Indiana. Okay, dude, look, you can make the point that she is physically different than the usual representation of a large league or a demographic without doing derogatory comments, right? To Pat's credit, man, I don't want to sit here and completely like shit on him without giving a fair double side of the story. He came out and he apologized today at the start of his show, and it, for my perspective, it seemed relatively genuine, man, that he was like, look, I messed that up. Like I dropped the ball on that. I apologize, whatever. That's cool. As long as somebody can like acknowledge what they said was wrong, I'll let everybody else make your own opinion on like how you want to go back and forth with it. But for Caitlin, I just think that this whole thing, man, let her play the game of basketball. She's not getting preferential treatment. She's not getting worse treatment than anybody else. She's playing basketball. It's a physical game. You talked about like the WNBA and not watching it. I've watched more WNBA this year than I have in a long time. I'm a casual, like we'll flip it on if it's on TV, right? Like, because I'm just a fanatic. And
you're talking about it. I know I can't talk about it, but you talk about it because you've actually been watching it.
And I'm not an expert by any means, right? But
you develop an opinion.
Correct. No, but you make a good point. I want to end it on this because I don't want to take too much time talking about Caitlin Clark. I want to get into some other stuff. But you made a great point earlier, and it's that we're not talking about the other basketball players that are actually having terrific years and have been having great years for seasons now and that actually carried this league for the time when no one was paying attention to it. So instead of ending this segment on all of Caitlin Clark and Kennedy Carter and Angel Reese, I'm just going to throw out some names so that if anyone is listening to this and doesn't watch the WNBA, check these girls out, these ladies out, because these are the women that have been balling. Like, I'm talking, like, you watch this dude and everyone has this opinion on the WNBA that they can't play, that they're unskilled. This is way more physical than the NBA. These ladies can play, dude. They are ballers and they do this professionally, right? Asia Wilson.
Oh, yeah.
Brianna Stewart, Dejanay Carrington, Skylar Diggins-Smith, Kelsey Plum, Sabrina Ionescu, Jackie Young, Alyssa Thomas, and Erica Ogunbowale. Terrific basketball players. Caitlin Clark, she's going to be okay. She's got to get a little bit stronger. She's got to adapt to the style of game. Angel Reese is going to be a mainstay in this league for a long time. I mean, there is a lot of talent in the WNBA, and I like that they're getting attention, but I hope that the attention turns from this like shock, clickbait bullshit into actual coverage of the sport, man. Yeah, I mean,
so politics made this. It's about money, right? Politics. During the 2016 election, Trump. Whoever it is that it is. I'm not going to be on anybody's side, but they set the example that if we can say whatever we want, and people will just immediately believe it because we are the news station and we're saying this. And so I'm just going to make one last point about like someone like ESPN. Yes, Pat McAfee can apologize all he wants. You know what he did with the things that he was talking about the Panthers? And then I have a big tweet about that, about how irresponsible some of the things that he said are. You talk on national TV. If I say, you know what, I threw 10 pick sixes, but like, I'm sorry. So that should be enough, right? That's what you do. That's your job as a quarterback, is to throw that's what you do. You throw the ball, right?
Take that risk. You throw the ball, right?
So when you're doing irresponsible things, I don't care that you apologize. This is what you do. This is your job. You cannot do this. So when you have somebody like the entire day, they all push the narrative where they did. One day they're talking about sexism. One day they're talking about racism, because they know that's what the audience is going to eat up, and they're just going to regurgitate that. So you have and everybody has roles, right? When I talk to you about roles in theater, I say, you're the straight man, I'm the stooge.
Sure.
We have our roles. So Kendrick Perkins gets up there and he says, he tries to be the good, guy that.
Hey, and he was, to his credit, man, he was a voice of reason in this, and that's nuts in itself.
But this is what he said. He said, you got to be careful what you say. This and this and this. Like, dude, those are triggering words to women. So you just generalize all women, and know what triggers all women.
Every woman.
So it's all these things that they are not thinking through what they're saying. They're saying a narrative that they've been told to push, which is really, really irresponsible. And what it's doing, because politics already said that they can do it, and they said, ESPN, Disney says, you know what? That makes a lot of money. Let's create an algorithm. Let's get all this data on what we want to see. And for 2 weeks, it was about how trash the Panthers were going to be, or what are they doing? You didn't have any data to support that. You're just saying that, and everybody repeats it. And a lot of that has to do with Bryce's size. So they're picking things that are that's inherently people's prejudice on things with no actually facts behind it to push, because they know that prejudiced people are going to just accept it, and they're just going to regurgitate it because they said it. And it's really irresponsible, and kind of like people could. I'm this is really dramatic, but that stuff built. There was an insurrection. Like, people die. Like, it's very irresponsible of media.
Because of the way that you're portraying things and being able to say whatever you want to skew a narrative.
Exactly.
It's a perfect little segue into what we were just talking about and what we'll bring up for the next thing. And that's the clickbait aspect of media nowadays, right? It's in sports, dude. It's in national news. It's in local news. It is in advertisement. It's on social media. It is on everything. And look, I understand that shock value and shock jockeys have been a play on media for a long time. Like, that's not something new, but it was also like a much smaller portion, right, of the media that was doing those things. And they were always regarded as like shock jockeys, right? Like, you think about like Howard Stern or something, right? He did things that would make somebody uncomfortable or get you out of your comfort zone to get a reaction. That was what he did. That was his stick.
Jerry Springer.
Literally, dude, like some of like the biggest people that we have seen kind of transform their platforms, right, did it by that avenue. But now you can't turn the TV on without somebody giving the hottest of takes and saying something that they will either apologize for, or that they will make an excuse for and say that it was misinterpreted, or that they will just have no basis of an argument and still put it out there as if it's a fact. And the only reason I wanted to talk about this, and I've got these pictures up here of Chris Sims and his quarterback list. Look, dude, you don't have to love Bryce Young. I think that some people get it twisted a little bit when I go to the defense of these lists and stuff like that have Bryce so far down. It's because of the context of some of these situations. Chris Sims, like you were just saying, has a national platform, right? And he is regarded as a professional analyst. He gets paid good money, and he is allowed to say whatever he wants, and people buy into it because he's a professional, right? When you are a professional, people think that your opinion matters more. So it's the old saying that if you have a nail in your car, you don't take it to a doctor, right? You take it to a mechanic because they're a profession. But if you have chest pain, you don't go to that mechanic, you go to the doctor. They are specialized in what they do, right? The guys that are doing analysis, the men and women that are doing analysis on sports, they're professionals. I hold them to a higher standard. I wish that other people did, but they put this shit out and then they give a context where they say, look, when I made this list, it's really important for me to take into account the surrounding factors, right? The weapons that they have, the coaching system that they're in, how long they've been playing with those guys, the rapport, all those things, right? That's what he said. Do me a favor. Look at number 31 above Bryce, who's number 34. That's Ryan Tannehill. Do you know who he's throwing to in OTAs right now? His dog or something in the backyard playing fetch. Like he's a free agent and he's ranked higher. Sam Darnold may or may not be the starter in Minnesota. JJ McCarthy is the other one, and he's also higher than Sam Darnold. And he's a rookie who's never played a single down. Bo Nix, Jaden Daniels, Michael Penix, Will Levis, all ahead. And they haven't played a single snap in the NFL. It's okay that you want to rank somebody based off of like potential talent and the way that you scout them and all that. But then you got Derek Carr, Daniel Jones, Deshaun Watson, Justin Fields, who lost his job to Caleb Williams and now is a backup in Pittsburgh to Russell Wilson. How are all of these people legitimately, like, how could you really give real reasons for them being better than Bryce Young potentially? Because all this is potential. This clearly isn't what they've done. It can't be, because he's got rookies that have never played it down. I mean, I just don't get it, man. Does this not infuriate you when you see shit like this?
It's also like the best people in the business at scouting are the people that are currently scouts, general managers, coaches. They are. If Chris Sims could be that, you don't think he would? Like that's why
he probably makes more money on Pro Football Talk.
Dude, of course. But people. That's honestly, I think
that's one of the problems.
You don't think Orlovsky was just begging to get hired by the Panthers?
Right.
That they want to be seen to know what they're doing. So you think that you being Chris Sims know better on everyone's board in the entire NFL. Jaden Daniels was higher than Michael Penix. Every single person that that's an assumption, but from everything I've heard, Jaden Daniels is always.
But it's probably a safe consensus to say, right?
And what's the why? Give me the why, and give me the why everybody else is wrong. Don't give me why you think you're right. Give me why everyone else that you're. So that when we do this, right, I'm going to say this one thing that it's not going to be a hot take, but let me give you my reasoning why. It's almost like, and it not almost like, it is something that you want, because all media, what is it called when you even if you say something bad, you're still getting people to talk about you. Dude, do you think Jason McIntyre, you think he believes every freaking thing he says?
Publicity is good publicity.
But you know what they know? Nobody's going to remember this next year. They just know that they're going to click and talk about it this year, because nobody's going to be like, let's look at Chris Sims' resume. I mean, maybe there's a few people that do it, but they know that they're going to.
I will. I'm that spiteful fool that will bring up all of his stupid lists.
Exactly, and they just know that you're going to talk about it. And you know what? Then you're going to see ESPN do it. ESPN do it. You're going to see FS1 do it, and every single time you're going to see Bryce Young at 34, and then you're going to say that he's small, or people say midget, or whatever negative connotation you want to give. I'm an average fan that's probably never watched the Panthers, actually, because why would I? And he's small, so that goes against my my inherent already thinking that shorter people are less than taller people.
Right.
Even though Bryce Young missed one game, the biggest student in the NFL as a rookie missed 13. But I don't care about data. I care about my prejudices.
Right.
It's just like.
Right. And let's don't forget though, man, we are leaving out a really important part of the analysis for Chris Sims, and that is Johnny Muscles and his wife, who obviously know what a first round pick is supposed to look, or first overall pick is supposed to look like too. Look, I don't want to go into it any too much longer because we are leaving it at a good point where we can get into
yeah.
I do want to talk about.
And that's what I'm trying to.
Yeah. But we get to talk. We get to talk about like the redemption tour that's about to start. Yeah. Because I'm going to tell you something, Alex, good buddy. I'm here to spread a really good word after all of that bullshit that we just talked about. And I wanted to talk about that bullshit to start this, though. To be completely fair, I wanted to do that because there is so much negative, just outlandish, boisterous, being wrong and loud for no reason stuff that goes on every single day in media, especially sports media. But the Carolina Panthers are back, baby. We started OTAs. I watched today. You haven't seen it yet. I watched the first episode of The Blueprint, which is the little docuseries for the Panthers that they do in the offseason. It's kind of like our edition of Hard Knocks type of thing.
They do a great job. Great job.
They do a great job, man.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you right now, I've already been, you know me, man. It doesn't take much to get me to buy back in, right? You can pretty much show me a couple clips of Bryce Young throwing a little dink pass with no helmet, no pads, no nothing on it. I'm like, oh my God, he's going to shred everybody up. Like it's over for the league. Well, I watched The Blueprint today, and the stark difference that I noticed is the energy, man. This dude, Dave Canales. Yeah. Look, I'm gonna be honest, man. When we hired Dave Canales, it starts with Dan Morgan for me. I wasn't thrilled about keeping Dan Morgan from the previous regime. I thought that he held a pretty high position and that we probably didn't need to keep him. That was my initial thought on it. I cannot wait to be wrong. Like, I really hope I'm very wrong about that, because what I saw was Dave Canales. I got to see more of his personality oozing through, and his coaching and his interpersonal relationships and his ability to connect with people. I've heard him say it, man. I've heard it on all of his pressers and interviews that he's a people person, that he wants to connect and do all those things. Never seen it, right? Because we don't get to watch practices. You don't get to watch OTAs and stuff like that. Watching it today, dude, he's Pete Carroll incarnate. Like, he is the same dude, about 25 years younger, and he is just running around. I've got a clip that I wanted to show, just one real quick thing of, let's see, let me bring this up. It's from The Blueprint. It's a clip of him.
Bring it up, bring it up, bring it up. Hey, one opportunity. That's all we got is to get better, okay? Keep your focus small. You can get better about 1, 2, maybe 3 things, all right? But the focus has got to be tight. Let's take advantage. Start with effort, okay? It's really a dream come true. For me, I've worked for some great bosses, and I've always had this thought when you work for somebody that you're able to take on their personality in terms of what are the things that are most important to them. And now that I'm the head coach, what just feels so freeing is that I can just be me. Here we go. Let's go on the hop. Things that I've thought about for a really long time. If I ever got my chance, this is how I would do it. Can't beat this. My personality. Woo! The way that I want to interact with the coaches. Let's go, man. The way that I want to interact with the players. What's up, JC?
Go, coach.
Good to see you, brother.
Let's go.
It's just really been a joy for me. Oh, yeah.
Obviously, he's got a lot of energy. He's really a player's coach. He's somebody the players really enjoy playing for, and you can tell out on the practice field.
Here we go.
So when you watch that, right, and you see the way that he is, does he not just seem like Pete Carroll to you? Like, does that not just seem like almost identical to Pete Carroll?
Well, so I'm an analytics guy, right? All I do is just look at weird, like, random things. I don't have it in front of me, but I think the last, there's a reason that Bill Belichick, you don't, it's not like people say that you're just dated, your system is dated, you do not keep up with the times. Those guys watch as much, they know just as much as these young guys, but the energy matters. So let's give you the bar, for example, right? We're talking about energy matters. If you go into like the best bars, like think of Olive Garden that do these based on analytics, they're putting the energy in the back because what they want to do, they want you to go to the back, they want you to take up all that space. Because if you don't go to the back, they're not monetizing that space. So look, a lot of places have the bar in the back, more TVs in the back, more energy in the back because you're always attracted to energy, right? They make bar stools high. Why? So you can get up and like kinetic energy. If there's games, they're usually in the back because that's where the lights, that's where the things are. So energy is something that people just relate to as long as it comes from like Matt Rule had energy, but Matt Rule had fake energy. Matt Rule is like trying to play a part.
It's a matter of being organic and authentic.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's what so I'm with you. I see that. So you think about Frank Reich when Frank Reich was like, what do you kids say today? Like, they're not going to follow you. Like,
100.
Yeah, like,
100.
They like that and I think that's like Wilkes. Like Wilkes is great, but you follow that because when everything goes wrong, what you go to your parents. It kind of feels like that, grandfather thing. But if you want to follow somebody like for a season, they got to believe you care. They got to see that you're organic, and they need to feed off that energy. What do you think Ray Lewis was like a psychopath? So everything's going to play better. So energy, that's why I'm so upset about Louisville. You feed off energy, and that comes from any business, bar, every business I was in. Like I was, of course, I'm the most energetic person that you've ever met because I'm just a psychopath. But jobs that I even do, people came to me because it's just you attract energy all the time, and that's why McVay is successful. That's why, and I agree. I think Canales was a great hire. Just like Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell probably don't know that he's probably not a savant, but dude, they were like they'll run through a brick wall for that guy because that's John Harbaugh or Jim Harbaugh. He's a psychopath.
And I think that part of what it is too, though, what you were talking about, we can get into this next part, is that it's about him having that energy, him having that connectivity with his team and the players, but also the connectivity between the staff, him and the players. So when he brings in Brad Idzik, right, his offensive coordinator, that's intentional too. Like they have a great relationship, but he also knows that he is willing because he believes in Brad Idzik, right? He has such a belief in his ability to do his job at the highest level that he's going to delegate that job and those responsibilities. He is not going to micromanage. You talk about the difference with Frank Reich too. Frank Reich was too involved. Everybody was too involved. It's the too many chefs in the kitchen thing that you heard all the time, right? There was just hands everywhere, voices everywhere, and nobody had a clear voice or directive that they were following. You look at what he's doing with Brad Idzik, he's going to let Brad do his thing. He wants this offense to be with Brad. He wants them to buy into what Brad is doing. Now, there's a great clip in the blueprint, and when you watch it, you're going to see it. He's talking to Deontay Johnson, and again, this is a nice little re-emphasizing that they did. The media team that we have is terrific.
Great, fantastic. They really are. They're really fantastic.
Incredible, dude. Like, seriously, we have one of the best audio, video, social teams in the league, man. I mean, that
best at something.
Yeah, at least we're terrific at something. But we're about to be terrific at a lot of things, man. If what I truly believe I saw it comes into fruition. But he's sitting there with Deontay Johnson, who's our new receiver, right, that we bring in, and he's telling him, he's like, "Look, man, we need an X. We need a guy that can just say, hey, if you're not going to be on me, you're not going to respect me." And I think he uses these words. He says, "Fuck you, you're done." Like he's going to beat you. And so he knows that he is instilling that confidence into Deontay Johnson that, hey, look, man, we brought you in here intentionally. You're our guy. You're going to be the thing that makes this passing offense run for Bryce Young. So he's sitting there explaining that. So it's a great insight, first of all, that we know that they are serious about playing him at the X because we had heard them mention it before. I think it's legitimate, man. I think that they want to do that. Now,
talking about organic.
Yeah, organic. Exactly, dude. Because then you open up what you do with Xavier Legette. Right? He gets to play that flanker, that Z, Thielen, slot. Then you get down into the Jonathan Mingos, the Terrace Marshall, possibly, that you can sit there and say, we're not relying on you guys to be high volume instant contributors that you might have had to pressure on before. We're going to allow you guys to be situationally successful.
Sure.
And that self-awareness that this coaching staff has is incredible, because we did not see that at all, man. Like, what a wild difference. And I love it. Now, the other part, Alex, that you should check out is when he talks about the ability to retain Ejiro Evero. He's sitting there and he's talking to, like, I think it's Steve Sarkisian at the Senior Bowl that he's talking to him. And he's mentioned to him, he's like, who do you got over there on defense? Who's coaching the defensive side? So, oh man, he's so great. He's so great. We got to keep EJ Evero. And like, he's just gushing about how smart he is and how incredible he is and how huge of a thing that is. And it reminds me that he's never coached anything other than the offensive side of the ball, Canales, right? He's at QC, I think, a year or two. But he's never coached defense. So he's not coming in his first year as a head coach and trying to change up a defense or instill a defense or do anything like that. He's also not worried about Evero overstepping and being the guy that, you know, is threatening him for his job or anything like that. Canales has a ton of confidence, dude. And that is going to seep into this team. And Evero being in charge, look, they retooled that defense, man. Ashawn Robinson, that's intent. Right? They brought in somebody to play run defense. Josie Jewell, that's a run defender. And Evero mentions it in the blueprint. He wants a physical, tough, and attacking the ball defense. Jordan Fuller, the safety they brought in for the Rams. All of these guys actually make sense with what they're doing. So I'm just really excited, man, to see a product on the field that has a vision and then a coaching staff that can execute that vision.
Yeah, dude, think of any job you've ever had. If you have a person that is trying to micromanage in any level, that only shows insecurity about them. Like,
Bingo.
They're afraid to fail. So you have, even if you're at I'm keeping bringing on the bar, but I'm do it in everything. But if you're at the bar and you're just like watching your bartenders all the time, you're definitely going to miss something somewhere else. Why are you insecure about your bar? You hired them. You hired him. That makes me think, if I'm the GM, well, did you not go through the vetting process of hiring them? Why did you hire them if you're just going to try to micromanage them? Did you have a plan? Are you going to have a plan on game day? Like, all that kind of stuff like goes into play. So your insecurity, everyone sees, and if they don't believe in you, then they're not going to follow you. So that, I agree with you. Having a leader that is just like, yeah, I got my staff's awesome. I'm gonna oversee everything. If I see stuff, I'm gonna let them know. I'm gonna ask questions. I'm gonna, but I'm going to do the things that I know how to do well and trust the people that I brought on to do the things that they do well. Tepper could take a note from that. Right. Tepper, like, if you don't believe in the people you hired, don't freaking hire them, man.
There's a great moment where Tepper, first of all, it's if you want to make a drinking game out of it, anytime you see Tepper drink, right? Like, just try to entertain yourself that way. But Tepper makes a sighting at practice, and he's sitting there standing next to Evero, and Evero's telling him, he's like, yeah, we're working on the fundamentals, right? Fundamentals and technique here today. And Tepper kind of laughs and I think, man, cracks a very funny, boom, roasted kind of joke on his own team. He's like, oh, yeah, it's probably a good thing to teach on both sides of the ball here, huh? Like, yeah, good for you, man. Like, you nailed that one. Like, I don't really like him, but I started thinking to myself, dude. I started thinking to myself, and I'm like, as highly as I respect Evero, and like, honestly, as highly as I think of him as a coach, if there's ever anyone that I want talking to David Tepper about football, it's probably Ev, man, because like, he might actually be able to teach him a little bit about this game.
Yeah, dude, you can know everything there is to know about. Bill Belichick probably knows more than anyone in the league about football. He ain't got a job. And, like, intangibles are so like Dan Quinn, for example. Dan Quinn, you know what he does? He gets energy up. Like, he got Shanahan, he's got Robinson now. He understands what he doesn't.
He's gonna have to work on those results.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. But like, he understands what he does not do well, and he and if you're really good at your job. We have. I don't completely believe in it, but I kind of do. We have a test for personality tests. I don't think it's like the best thing, but it's a nice little guide, because you don't want the same sort of person. It basically gets like portfolio managers away from getting like mini-me's, because if you have all the mini-me's, then there's a lot of intangibles that you don't have on your team. So it gives you different areas that cover because you can't have like 95 leaders. You have to have people that are, good at just taking direction and all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
Same thing with leaders in any area of like Manchester United uses that model because that's why super teams don't work, right? Because they're so used to playing in their lead role and they just mess up. So I love that all the coaching staff that I've seen so far, it does come together like that.
Yeah.
It is a very everyone might know more than I do about it, but I have other skills that I'm using, and I'm letting him do that. I'm doing this.
He knows that, though, and that self-awareness, that's part of it. But the good part is that all these intangibles also start showing up in actual like preparation and what they're doing. So to pivot back into OTAs, right? Because that's the on the field practice. Yeah. And look, OTAs, I know that a lot of times people think you can't take anything from OTAs. And I don't think you can take like a lot, right? It's not like you could sit there and say, oh, that team is going to win 12 games because of what I saw them do with no pads on. For our team, our specific situation coming off of 2-15 and looking like we had absolutely no idea what we were doing on a professional football field, OTAs can be pivotal. And it's for the reason that Dave Canales gave when he was asked by reporters last week. And he said, and I think the question was actually about the offensive line, right? It was like, how can you really gauge what the offensive line can do in a practice like OTAs, where there's no pads, there's no collisions, right? Like it's how do you gauge what you're doing there? And he's like, well, look, this is one of the most important parts of the offseason and of the preparation for this position group specifically, but for the entire football team, this is about repetition. It's about detail. It's about consistency and technique, hand technique, timing of your footwork, right? Where to be, your drops. These are all things, and the offensive line position especially is so heavily based off of like muscle memory, right? That you're supposed to just do things naturally and instinctively in the way that your body knows to do them. How many times last season did we see Ike Ekwonu look like he honestly was a little bit lost in his own body and just didn't know what to do? He didn't know what the next step he needed to take was. He came out and he said last week when being asked about it and said, hey, you had struggles last week, right? What do you think about going into this? He candidly admitted that he didn't use the resources available to him last season with his coaching. He said that he rode on the coattails of a successful rookie season. That's very alarming because his rookie season wasn't overly successful, right? Like if you felt like you reached a crescendo and that was it, and you're the 6th overall pick, that ain't what you want to do. But secondly, it made me think, was he trying to ignore those ability or those places that he could have asked for his offensive line coach, anything like that, strength and conditioning, whatever? Was he ignoring them or did he not trust them? Because there was such a schism and divide in that room, and it came out with all of the ratting and the going behind people's backs and the little cliques that were formed. Maybe he didn't want to be a part of all that shit, right? Maybe that was just one of those things that deteriorated that locker room so poorly and so vastly that he just didn't want to play a part. You come into this year, you give him Damian Lewis, right? Corbett moves over to the center. We'll find out. I hope that works out. We'll see.
They know more about football than I know. So
right, and then you signed Robert Hunt at right guard, and then you still got Taylor Moton. That unit right there, if they can gel, and that's what you're doing in OTAs too. Sure. And guess what? Most of those guys have been there. Robert Hunt showed up this week because he had his wife just had a baby. Congratulations to Robert Hunt and the Hunt family. I think that was about 2 weeks ago.
They're probably listening. So
I'm sure they listen. They're avid listeners. But so he just showed up. And Canales has also made a really intentional point of pointing out all the people that are there and that have showed up. And he says in the blueprint, he says, this is a critical offseason. Like I want you to make this the best offseason of your life. That's what he said. He said, that's the mission. That's the goal. How can you make it the best offseason of your life if you're not showing up? Like if you're not there, I know this is voluntary, dude. So I'm not like knocking. Look, I'm not going to knock Jadeveon Clowney for not showing up. Jadeveon Clowney doesn't ever participate in OTAs, right? Yeah. Like a 10-year vet, 9-year vet, something like that. But the guy that I want to touch on, 2 guys real quick to get your opinion. Clavon Chason, the retread from Jacksonville, who was a first-round pick. I think he was the 24th overall pick about 2 years ago. He has 9 total tackles and 2 sacks in his career, and he's not there. Eddie Pinheiro, the kicker, Steady Eddie Money, Eddie Dinero, however you want to call him. He's not there. He says he's training with his brother because his brother is a rising senior, and he didn't want to miss that opportunity.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. You don't want to miss that. And also, you're not a professional football player that can travel to be at practice 2 days a week and then still be at your brother's bedside or whatever it is that you need to do. But tough thing for Eddie, we've got an undrafted free agent rookie in camp, Harrison Mevis, the thicker kicker, who has gone 20 for 20 in media-covered portions of OTAs, including a 60-yarder to end the session. I mean, Eddie Pinheiro hasn't ever hit a 60-yarder. When he came out there to kick a 59-yarder in Chicago, he gave the shrug because he knew it was a bad idea to send him out there. I was going to say some awful words, but I'm going to try to contain myself. I just don't understand it, man. If you were facing one of the more pivotal moments of your life, which I think is what Clavon Chason is facing, I think that if he doesn't do well in Carolina, I don't think he finds himself on another NFL roster. I mean, would you not attack this differently?
Yeah. So one, I'm not going to specifically say anything. I'll do a general take because I don't know what's going on. They might have something going on. I don't know. I don't have all the data. But man, I was a senior, I forgot what I was, but I remember spraining my ankle, and it hurt like hell. But I was so scared to lose my starting position on our high school basketball team that I played through. Like you can't if you're not there, you can't win a job. But you can sure as hell lose a job.
You sure can't lose one.
Man, once you're the guy that's traded everywhere or cut everywhere, that's the reputation that you have. And I'm sorry for anybody that's watching. My camera's all over the place. But yeah, I cannot believe anyone would do it except for contract negotiations. And if I hate the whole leverage game, and that's why the best teams usually get all their stuff under control early. I mean, get ahead of it. Everything. I'm not going to go through all of them, but start getting that repetition together. Have you ever you seen Remember the Titans, right? Yeah. And he's like, "That's the worst attitude I've ever heard." And he's like, "Attitude reflect leadership, Captain." Like,
that's it.
Yeah, and that's why what happens. And I don't want to make an assumption, but when you see somebody like CJ Stroud that's out on all these tours and podcasts and talking crap and all that kind of stuff, he's kind of leaning into this media narrative. That's the scariest thing for me. I mean, that kind of guy where you got everybody else working and he's creating those distractions and he's not completely focused on what he's doing. Those kind of things would go for me as a coach, as a leader. I would say something I would be like, "Hey, can we just focus on this? You're allowed to do whatever you want to do. You make your own decision, but this is how we feel. Let's keep this communication going." For those two specifically, it's so when you're a first round pick and you don't work out the first 3 years, then you probably ain't gonna work out anyways. He's just a high upside guy, and Pinheiro, that's a kicker. I don't know where we all. First of all, I don't know why Panthers Twitter is so.
He's also not. Kickers. He's also Eddie Pinheiro is not a irreplaceable kicker, man.
That's what I'm saying. Why do we care? People are so obsessed about Eddie Pinheiro. These guys are hurting me. Get him off the practice.
I think for Eddie, at least for me, from my vantage point, what I've seen is that he should be a starting player on the team. Now you say he's just a kicker, whatever, but kickers they hold their position, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
But but I know what you meant by that too, and I agree with it. But he's still a starting player, and he just didn't show up. So out of all of the reports that I found, and I haven't done an exclusive, super deep dive into this, but he's the only kicker that I have seen not reported to their team's OTA.
Because that's stupid. That's the easiest job to lose.
It's dumb as hell, dude. Just go to OTAs. You know what I'm saying? Unless you have, and look, man, I give a sincere caveat that if you have a personal or family or health related issue, those things are bigger than football. But outside of those issues, you're talking about a voluntary 2 or 3 day a week for 3 weeks workout without pads, where you're just kicking the football, but you're doing it in front of your coaches. You're making a commitment, and you're showing them that you're committed and that you're willing to do what the team wants you to do for the greater success, right? Especially when you're talking about having a new coaching staff. And Eddie Pinheiro, people will say, well, he was one of our best players. Not last year. Not last year. He was not very good. Last year, he was in like the top 17, I think, of percentages and stuff like that. But if you dig even deeper into it, the dude missed 4 extra points. That he shot. You can't miss those kinds of kicks, dude. Those kicks change the trajectory of a game, though. When you don't have confidence, when you don't have confidence to bring your kicker out from 50 plus, when you just don't have that confidence level, you change the way that your offense is attacking. You're making your offense compensate for your kicker as opposed to your kicker helping your offense. That is ass backwards, dude. So Eddie Pinheiro, whatever. But when you talk about Clavon Chason, and this is the point that I wanted to make about him, he's not an impact player in my mind anyways. I didn't think that it was a very good signing. I thought that was probably the biggest goof signing that we made all offseason. But here's where it's important for me. We also found out that DJ Wanham had a setback with his torn quad. And so he is not ready. He's still rehabbing. He's not close to being back on the field right now. Canales pretty much just said today. Jadeveon Clowney, he's missed his fair share of games in his career from injury. Outside of DJ Wanham, Jadeveon Clowney, and Clavon Chason, we are looking at DJ Johnson playing a integral role on this defense. Him and Iku Leota. Now, look, everyone knows I'm an Iku Leota guy. I'm going to give him the opportunities. But I will be very honest about it and acknowledge the fact that he was an undrafted free agent who got very minimal play last year. And now you're going to ask him to potentially play a big role if your 3rd round pick, DJ Johnson, looks like he looked last year. Yeah. It's just, this was a huge opportunity for Chason. And the team essentially said, hey, look, man, we'll give you another chance. We believe in you enough to give you another chance. And his response to that has to just be MIA, just to be a no-show. And that sucks because what you see on that blueprint and what you see in that episode, everybody else, dude, is buying in. Like, you want to talk about drinking the Kool-Aid? This dude has everybody busting through walls screaming, oh, yeah. Like, they're not drinking the Kool-Aid. They are the Kool-Aid, dude. Like, people are jacked up about this team. And you can see it, man. It is infectious. It is something that is really carrying through. And I'm very excited about it. He's got Bryce Young, dude, working out 2.7 seconds, get the ball out. That's been his hot number, right? Reworking his footwork, widening his base, getting him ready to throw. He is really going back to fundamentals to fix the things. Well, we talked earlier about that Caitlin Clark and media bullshit about how you got to go to the root of the problem and address it if you want to change it. Dave Canales has come up into this football team and he has dug up the roots. And he is either cleaning them off to replant them where there's not shit all over them, or he is putting new roots down. And that is exactly what this football team needed, in my opinion.
Yeah, one of my mentors when I was when I first went to a corporate world, like literally just drilled. Everything matters. Everything matters, and the why. And we started for like why do you feel this way? Those are the great leaders, like the why. Warren Buffett, why am I investing in this? Like it's when the more specific and meticulous, like Bill Belichick, like was the worst drafting person ever, but he was attention to detail, and that's why he was so successful. And that's why when you have somebody that when you don't have the insecurities of micromanaging, then you can pay attention to the details like that. And the people that pay attention to the details are the ones that, you know, when it's a 1-score game at the end of the game, Andy Reid usually he has attention to detail, usually wins. 2, when you're a team that says our kicker is one of our best players, you probably ain't a very good team.
Well, the Ravens, Justin Tucker's one of their best players, and he's terrific.
Justin Tucker is one of the best kickers of all time.
That's right. Hey, you want to know a fun fact? Justin Tucker was an 83% field goal kicker in college at Texas. Do you want to know what percentage field goal kicker Harrison Mevis was at Missouri?
You know what? I know the answer, but I know that you need to give the end of
83%, Alex. Now, look, I'm not saying that the thicker kicker is just a thicker Justin. That's not what I'm saying. But I am saying, hey, look, if it's one of those weird things where statistics end up, predicting some shit, I'm into it, man. Give me Justin Tucker on the Carolina Panthers roster. I'd be a happy camper. Look, I want to end it with one more thing, man. Mm-hmm. When we talked about Bryce Young earlier, right? He's getting criticism from national media. He gets criticism from fans, and already ready to proclaim this dude a bust, right?
Yeah.
That's cool, man. Do what you want to. I honestly am at the point where I'm not going to go and try to defend Bryce Young to anybody else anymore, because he's about to have that opportunity to really do that. He has an adequate wide receiver room, in my opinion. I think that Deontay Johnson, I expect to have a very big year, to be completely honest, man. Like, I'm overly excited about that. I think he has a terrific year. We didn't even talk about Jonathan Brooks because he's still rehabbing his ACL, so no one has seen him. Jonathan Brooks is a dynamic football player that provides an element that this offense sorely missed and did not have as a pass blocker and as a pass catcher out of the backfield. Absolute game changer to have a good player do those two things. But you look at Deontay Johnson, Xavier Legette, Jonathan Mingo, Adam Thielen, right? And potentially TMJ, ISM, some combination of that, or a Michael Strahan, whatever you want to do with that last few picks. You can figure last few depth positions. You can figure that out. Then you talk about Jatavion Sanders, Tommy Tremble, Ian Thomas. Canales has said so many times about this being a tight end friendly offense. You made the crucial investment in the offensive line, right? I paint that picture to just say Canales has been directly involved in the resurgence of Geno Smith and Baker Mayfield at the quarterback position under his guys. Right now, I'm not saying he was directly responsible, like only and solely responsible for it, but he had a serious hand in what he did with that. He's been credited with the play for his quarterbacks at each stop that he's been at, right? You mean to tell me, you want to argue with me that Bryce Young and his talent pedigree and what he has done in his football career is not a level above what Geno Smith and Baker Mayfield brought to the table? And he got the most out of those two dudes and had that team playing well under their leadership. But you want me to believe that Bryce Young has no chance of succeeding in the NFL?
Yeah.
Man, I cannot wait for regular season NFL football and for Bryce Young and this Carolina Panthers team to come out and surprise and shut up a whole lot of Johnny Muscles and people's wives.
Man, think of every single year. Do you see Baker Mayfield on the Panthers? Mm-hmm. It really might have been the worst quarterbacking I've ever seen in my entire. It was horrendous. But then he gets with a good coach on a good team.
Don't disrespect Jimmy Clausen like that.
No, but then he gets on a good coach and a good team, and now Chris Sims has a middle of the pack quarterback. Situation matters.
Absolutely.
Every year, so I'm a data person, right? Every year I've looked back, almost 80% of the teams that are in the top 10 of health make the playoffs.
Right.
Health matters and adjusted games missed that Panthers had. They were third worst in adjusted games missed. They were the third most injured team with the top 10 hardest schedule. You know what sucks when you're a 7-win team and then you tie for second place with the third and fourth place, and somehow the Saints get the bottom and they had 7 wins too. You get the second hardest schedule of that division, which ended up being the hardest schedule of the division because randomly these teams got awesome, almost like you can go first to worst. Because sometimes, people get injured, and nobody's saying that that the Bengals aren't going to do anything this year because they, had a down year, it's so wild that we use these very, very elementary arguments about these teams. Mm-hmm. Like Vegas had Panthers at 7 wins last year, and they're like, oh no, actually, we're idiots. We Bryce Young's actually awful. You go with this one. Yeah. It's like no, nobody's making mistakes. Sometimes things happen. Sometimes you get hurt.
It's just a bad year. Yep.
Yeah. The only teams I think in the top 12 that didn't make the playoffs as the most the easiest schedule with the Falcons and the Saints. Right. Luck has a lot to do with it. If we're healthy and we get an easy schedule, we're probably going to make the playoffs. Like there's such variables that go into place. That, I mean, I don't know if anybody in the top 5 that picked last year ended up in the top 5 this year. It changes every single year. Sometimes it doesn't matter how good you are. Like sometimes you're the Texans and your second best team in your division is Gardner Minshew because the quarterback went down. Like things happen. So I hate this narrative, especially after 1 year.
1 year,
one bad year. It's just so freaking ridiculous.
If we threw out all the quarterbacks that had a bad rookie year, the NFL history would be awful, dude. Like we would miss out on some of the best football that you have ever seen played because you would be taking Peyton Manning off of the field. You'd be taking Troy Aikman off of the field. Like you would just be taking so many good football players and discarding them because of a bad rookie situation.
Yeah, actually, one thing to that. One thing to that. This primetime game nonsense that became such a big deal. It's like, well, we got to earn those. Well, no, you don't. The Bears had 4 last year, and they won 3 games the year before. Like, let's stop finding ways to make the Panthers sound worse than they are, and say, you know what, they were really freaking hurt last year. You know what, he was a rookie. You know what, they had a coach that got fired in the middle of the season because we didn't do this stuff when Trevor Lawrence had all that kind of stuff happen. So. But we did it. But the reason it's so accepted is because we stay small and we have a prejudice against small, and we say, I think he's going to get hurt. You know what? Russell Wilson was the freaking Iron Man of the league. Right. Kyler Murray never missed a game. Then he tore his ACL and he came back faster. Like Doug Flutie never. Like Drew Brees rarely missed games. Like he played hurt all the time. The smaller quarterbacks never actually get hurt, but we want to. Through our prejudice, say that I'm scared he's not going to last. Like, it's just. If there's one thing to take to this whole thing, and I really hate that I didn't really talk football at all. I just talked about like prejudice, which is kind of a downer. But like, just always ask why. Like, why is somebody saying this? And just say, let me actually have an independent thought about this instead of dang, Alex, stop drinking.
But also, like this whole thing though, man, with Bryce. He is going to have an opportunity to prove it. So no matter what the opinion is right now going into this, right? And that's why I think it's so funny, man, that people are making definitive statements. Opinions are fine, dude. Everyone has an opinion. You and I are sitting here right now having this conversation based on our opinions. These aren't definitive things that we're saying. Sure. We're presenting the opportunities that could show who's right and who's wrong, right? That's all it is. And I don't care, man. I said it earlier too. If Bryce Young were to, play terribly and they bench him after week 4 or something like that for some god awful reason, that won't happen. First of all, I don't believe it'll happen. But if they did that and Andy Dalton came in and strung off 13 straight wins and took us to the playoffs, I would be ecstatic. You know why? Because the Carolina Panthers would be in the playoffs. I don't care about individual play. I root for individual players that play for my team because I am a fan of my team. I want team success. Sure. We are absolutely tethered to as far as this team goes, in my opinion, is how far Bryce can go individually. Quarterbacks do matter. We know that to be a fact. Sure. Like there's no use in playing like, oh no, everybody has to play together. Yeah, it's a team sport and everything does matter and context matters, situation matters, health matters, all those things. As the quarterback goes, teams go in this modern NFL. Yeah. I am not worried about Bryce Young. I think that Bryce Young is going to come out and have a killer season. And watching him today and listening to his coach talk about how much he believes in Bryce, dude, that was another takeaway. He believes in him. Like we all believe in him. Bryce believes in himself. And I think that Bryce got down on his outlook last year. I think that he felt almost defeated at points of the last season.
Wouldn't you?
I would, 100%. Yeah. But Bryce is like the strongest, mentally strong person I've ever heard speaking and come across like the way that he does. And for him to look dejected at times last season, it was crucial, man. Like it was crushing to see that. And seeing how he is attacking this year and how he's already responding to the coaching and having one voice telling him what he's supposed to be doing with one clear goal of all this. Hey, watch out, NFL. I think that Bryce Young's about to come through and just mess shit up.
Dude, So the people that matter, the people that actually know what they're talking about and aren't a part of a publicly traded company that's pushing a narrative. Look at every single coach that played against Bryce, quarterbacks, anybody that says anything about Bryce, they're like, dude, this guy's it.
Right.
Like, this guy's awesome. The only people that say he's not are talking heads like Chris Sims and and honestly, like, you never had like the I don't want to say either side politics, but like you just say, I'm going to put my politics aside and be like, man, I just want to punch that guy in the face. Like, and I do that because I don't associate with either party. Well, I don't associate with either party, but I'm like a black and white data guy, and I just accept everything. Like, I just take in everything that comes in, and I'll just get distracted and like, I just want to punch this guy in the face. I don't even know what he said because it's like here see Step Brothers. Step Brothers. It's just your face. It's just your face. Yep. And like these guys that are on TV, like Chris Sims and what's the I just blanked on his name, the coward
Jason McIntyre.
He's like, I was like, that's gonna punch you in the face, but they're the only ones that are creating this narrative. But we'd rather take on that narrative because that's what we see all the time, because we don't remember last year when all the coaches and the scouts and everything were saying how great he was and how good of a career he's going to have. So just don't take everything that you hear on the publicly traded networks that need you to watch.
Come and form your opinions with the Full Body Show. We're the where you should really get your information.
And I won't give you anything good about like sports, but I will say how wrong you are about the way you think.
100%. Yeah. Look, I'm not going to be able to provide you any correct information, but I will 100% point out all the shit that you're wrong about.
I don't think I gave any analysis on like football at all.
It's okay, man. It was fun just to sit around and
drink some rancid.
Yeah, it's fun to just sit around and drink, man.
I'm sorry to anyone who ever listened to it. Like, it's just like it's like a buildup of like 2 weeks of not really paying attention to sports. It's just like getting annoyed at everything.
You'll be better next time, man. You'll take a couple days, watch the Blueprint. And, when episode 2 comes out, watch that one too.
Stop this. So I don't know what happened, but so everybody's listening, and I know I keep on this. Nobody's listening by now because I'm just saying the stuff. But me and Ricky share a StreamYard account. So usually whenever I come, damn it, this camera again. So usually when I come on the StreamYard, it's already there. Something happened. I didn't pay my bill or something, but it wasn't popping up. So I had to click and go through the app. And the app won't let me mess with my camera, so it's doing all this weird like adjustment through the whole time.
It's just like what is that? What is the action producer? Michael Bay. It's like the Michael Bay version of the Bow Body Show for you over there, man. Like, you got a GoPro on. Mark Wahlberg's about to come over and throw you in a yellow Camaro. Like, you're just over there balling, dude. It's cool, man. But this was fun.
It was so fun. I'm so glad I got to do it.
I do want to try to do an episode maybe after the Blueprint episodes drop, because I'm going to tell you something, man. Those things will get you jacked up. Next time, I need you to almost just schedule whenever they're going to drop episode 2. You got to just like block off and be like, "Hey, look, real world, I can't do anything for you. Ricky needs me."
Yeah, my daughter's like crying. I'm just like, 1 second.
Yeah, sorry, babe. I'm sorry. Can you handle that, baby? I'm over here. Ricky needs me to watch this.
Oh, but man, this is exactly what I needed. I just like laugh and talk nonsense.
Good. Well, look, until next time.
Sorry, you had to listen to it.
No, hey, I think that this was a fun one, man.
No, it was fun. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, me too. Until next time, I'm your host, Ricky Rains, for the Bow Body Show. Come and enjoy the episode 2 recap with us. And we'll end it like we used to end the Kitty Lit episodes for old time's sake. How about that?
Let's do it.
Keep pounding.
Pounding.